The African Development Bank is basically there to serve and support development across the entire continent. The bank is active in basically all sectors of the economy, but we have priority focal areas on the development of infrastructure, governance, development of private sector. And in doing so, we're trying to become more inclusive and more inclined to support countries' transition towards green development. But the portfolio of the bank basically cuts across the entire continent in all sectors of the economy. We're based in the headquarters of the African Development Bank is in Abidjan. We are temporarily located in Tunisia, and we operate from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the key question, the question we've heard, or the question we've heard many times at this conference is funding, climate funding, where it comes from, and does it get to the countries where it's most needed, the projects where it's most needed? I mean, how do you, the Africa Development Bank, ensure that that happens, and how do you, where does the money come from, basically?
Well, climate change related work is one of the areas where the African Development Bank attaches high priorities. And as you know, Africa contributes least but is really affected the most. So building resilience within African economies is always in our mind as we provide development support. Like I mentioned, we're active in all sectors, and what we have done in the bank to start with is to see how best we can align the investment that the African Development Bank provides to make an impact in the area of climate work. So we have put in a plan to invest $6.4 billion over a 5-year period in what we call a climate change action plan. It will basically help countries build a better and more resilient infrastructure, a more sustainable agriculture, invest more in provision of water, irrigation, water management, clean energy, and related unrelated sectors. But the work does not stop there. The bank is also very active pursuing and helping African countries access resources from climate funds. You have the climate investment funds. We have several instruments within the African Development Bank. We have the Africa Water Facility, which basically helps African countries develop their water resources with an integrated approach towards development. We have the Congo Basin Forest Fund, which makes very targeted contributions to assist reducing with the rates of deforestation in the Congo Basin, the second largest lung in the world. We have a Sustainable Energy for Africa instrument, which basically one of the key channels for the UN Secretary General Initiative, Sustainable Energy for All. We've committed $1 billion for the next 20 years annually. That's a total investment of about $20 billion in this particular area. And more importantly, we are busy trying to identify how we're going to assist African countries prepare to access resources from the Green Climate Fund. It is quite important to recognize that access to climate resources in the past has been and continue to be constrained by the lack of preparedness of a large number of African countries. So the question is, how can the African Development Bank bring its operational experience, 50 years of operational experience in project and investment lending? How can you address the issues of capacity at country level? How can you help African countries put in place the right set of plans and then develop a strong pipeline and help with the preparation so that as and when the funding becomes available, then these countries will be able to access these funds in the most appropriate way.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a global sense, when you come to meetings like COP18, what can COP18 do? What can this negotiating process do to make your work easier, quicker, more efficient?
Well, we need to recognize African Development Bank is not a negotiating party, but we support our negotiating parties, the African countries, to be able to speak with one voice. So for the past 3 or 4 years, the African Development Bank has put in significant technical assistance and to facilitate the Africa groups to come together to be able to identify what the priority actions for Africa are. We have the African Ministers of Environment that comes together under the leadership of also from the African Union, and then we try to facilitate. And I think it has had a very positive impact in allowing Africa to speak with one voice rather than to come and negotiate 54 or 53 different positions. Now, what we also do is to try and continue to do a certain number of thematic research areas and knowledge, and build the knowledge of the African negotiators so that they are at par with negotiators from other parts of the world. They're equally informed, they understand what the climate change impacts in certain regions of Africa is, what is the implications for moving to low carbon development, what are the financial needs for Africa to be able, for instance, to meet the adaptation being a key priority for Africa, and so on and so forth. So our presence here is to really support the African countries and be able to communicate as the voice of Africa on development issues, and especially as far as development assistance is concerned.